In 1947, world's largest apartment complexes called Peter Cooper Village Stuyvesant Town was built between First Avenue and Avenue C, and from 23rd Street to 14th Street in New York City. This gigantic slum clearance project was made possible by New York's Urban Redevelopment Act of 1943 and the ambitious city planner Robert Moses, who is well known as the master builder of the city. He branded the area as blighted and used the power of eminent domain to clear the neighborhood and build post-war housing complexes for returning veterans. With the backing of this public power, the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company joined the project as a developer to realize Moses' vision. The design for the project was influenced by the world-famous architect Le Corbusier's Tower in the Park model. Contrary to its original purpose of providing affordable housing, the project ended up evicting 11,000 people from the existing neighborhood, and only white veterans were allowed to live there, which was intended to increase profitability. Following the project, the Housing Act of 1949, which federally funded slum clearance programs, was passed under President Harry Truman. It opened the door to the slum clearance movement across major cities in the United States. However, people soon realized that the development approach focused on large blocks and high-rise buildings led to segregation and urban decay. By the mid-1970s, the lack of federal funding for urban renewal brought an end to urban renewal projects in the United States. Unfortunately, the legacy of urban renewal in the United States continued in South Korea. While New York had Robert Moses, Seoul had Mayor Kim Hyun-ok, who was nicknamed Bulldozer Kim. He was a war veteran who had served in the Korean War and became the mayor of Seoul in 1966, where he directly led the city's urban redevelopment projects for 4 years. That same year, U.S. President Lyndon Johnson visited South Korea, and the exposure of Seoul's numerous unauthorized shanty towns to the international community made President Park Chung-hee and Mayor Kim Hyun-ok realize the urgent need to revamp the city. In 1967, Kim Hyun-ok introduced the Deteriorated Building Clearance Plan, a major urban redevelopment initiative designed to eliminate unauthorized shanty towns that had rapidly spread due to Seoul's explosive population growth and replace them with apartment. This policy was implemented in a highly militaristic manner. During his time in office, more than 430 apartment buildings were erected, which led to the forced relocation of many original residents to the outskirts of Seoul. The side effects of these coercive and militaristic policies did not end here. If you are somewhat familiar with Korean culture, you may have heard of the term pali pali, which means hurry up. Under the goal of eliminating all unauthorized settlements within his term, apartment construction had to proceed at an extremely fast pace, leading to many cases of shoddy workmanship and corruption. In April 1970, one of the projects, the Wow Apartments, collapsed, leading to Mayor Kim Hyun-ok stepping down from his position due to the incident. However, Kim Hyun-ok's resignation didn't mean that residential urban redevelopment in South Korea was over. This is because economic growth in South Korea was closely tied to residential redevelopment. Let's take a brief look at residential redevelopment in South Korea. It can be broadly categorized into 3 main types. The first redevelopment approach involves converting slum areas into apartment complexes, similar to what was done during Kim Hyun-ok's time. This process replaces the old, medieval-like city fabric with a more streamlined urban form. The second redevelopment approach involves transforming low-rise, relatively well-maintained residential areas and commercial zones, known as villas in South Korea, into apartment complexes. The final redevelopment strategy is to convert existing apartment complexes into higher density ones. What we should note here is that all types of housing in South Korea are being transformed into high-rise apartment complexes, which leads to significant segregation. South Koreans generally prefer apartments because the lifestyle is seen as more convenient, and apartments are considered a more profitable real estate investment. In South Korean society, owning an apartment is viewed as a panacea. The social segregation resulting from apartment-focused redevelopment affects not just adults, but also spreads in bizarre ways among children. There are kids who live in villas and those who live in apartments. Children living in villas are often ostracized by their peers, who live in apartments simply because of where they reside. This phenomenon is a well-known dark side of South Korean society. Let's take a moment to appreciate the names of some of South Korea's large apartment complexes. It's enough to make me question whether I'm living in South Korea or the United States. If you decide to live in South Korea, you'll never forget your address. From an outsider's perspective, South Korea might appear to be a very normal and ordinary country. As a top 10 global economic powerhouse, a leading country in K-pop culture, and a place with a high level of safety and security. However, our growth has relied on endless competition created by residential and social segregation. This focus on discrimination and the standardization of life, which leads to a loss of personal identity, is still ongoing. The fact that South Korea has one of the lowest birth rates in the world may be proof of this. Today, we explored how imported urban renewal have transformed South Korean society. Thank you for watching.